Oh wow. So good. It's amazing.
So delicious.
Yes. Hey everyone, so Upside Foods is now launching their cultivated chicken at Bar Cren in San Francisco. They had a group of 5 people who went and tried the first cultivated chicken and then did a tour of their factory. That was one of their prizes that they did when they first got FDA approval. So that was end of June.
Upside chicken, we've battered it in a...
Upside food.
Upside food. Battered in a Recado Negro tempura, so Recado Negro being a classic chili paste from the Yucatan, on top of burnt chili aioli, flowers, purple shiso, and a little bit of orange zest.
And then there's actually a really good clip that CNN did. We are at the very start of this whole journey, and who knows where this is going to go. It might not be successful. Like, that's possible. But technology does also improve, and with so many people working on it over time, I do expect that in 10 years from now, we'll have cultivated meat, and it will be a lot more commonplace than it is today. Now, I could be wrong. Maybe it won't take off, but I'm pretty hopeful, pretty optimistic. So with that...
Move over farm to table. Lab to table has arrived, with the US now the second country to approve the sale of what's called cultivated meat. That's meat grown from live animal cells and cultivated with nutrients and amino acids in a giant vat, kind of like you'd find at a brewery. Supporters say it will help fight climate change by reducing the need for traditional animal agriculture, like cows, which emit greenhouse gases which warm the planet. But hey, how does it taste?
It'll taste exactly as you would expect a chicken to taste. So the part that's remarkable about it is we didn't have to raise and slaughter a chicken to get real chicken meat out of it. And the part that's unremarkable is that it tastes like chicken. It's what we've been used to eating for thousands of years.
Tastes like chicken because it comes from a chicken. Apparently cows are more complicated to grow. 2 companies plan to sell cultivated chicken to restaurants in Washington and San Francisco. Kind of like a soft launch, if you like. With us now from Washington is Bruce Friedlich, CEO of the Good Food Institute, a non-profit organisation which promotes plant and cell-based alternatives to animal products. Bruce, thank you for being with us.
Thanks very much for having me, John. I'm glad to be here.
Oh, that's good, because I want to talk about the cost of this lab-grown meat, if you like.
The labels for this kind of product, it's now called cultivated meat, not lab-grown meat. They actually switch between the two terms quite a bit.
Because it's been doable now for a decade or longer, but it's always been very costly. Back in 2019, for example, Bloomberg reported these $50 chicken nuggets were grown in a lab, and that was $50 each nugget, down from $1,000 each. More recently, a restaurant in Singapore offered lab-grown chicken and waffles on one plate and chicken on a Chinese steamed bun on the other. The cost was 23 Singapore dollars, about 17 US dollars. So given that the cultivated chicken will be available in the United States at a few select restaurants, what will be the cost point here? How much will it cost? And will that cover the cost of production? Will it come anywhere close to the break-even point?
Well, it's going to be offered in Jose Andres in Washington, D.C. is going to have it in one of his restaurants, and Dominique Cran, a Michelin-starred chef in San Francisco, will have it in one of her restaurants. So my guess is that it will be comparatively priced with the other items on their restaurants, but those items are already priced fairly highly. Will the companies break even? I don't know if they're going to break even. They'll probably come close to breaking even. It might be a little bit of a loss leader early on, but I think that's probably going to be up to the restaurants and where the restaurants are willing to price it. Because I think no matter what cost they price it at, there will be lines around the block and very long waiting lists from people who are enthusiastic about the idea of eating meat that was grown without the need for live animals.
Yeah. Now, the CEO of Upside Foods, which is one of the 2 companies given approval by regulators, he shed some light on the production process. This was back in January. Listen to this.
So cultivated meat is meat. Like I said, it's not a meat alternative. It's meat that's grown from real animal cells. So what we do is we take really high quality animal cells from, let's say, a cow or a pig or a chicken or a lobster, and we look for cells that can continue to grow outside the animal in a very robust and a healthy way.
But a study published in the Biotechnology and Bioengineering Journal, this was back in 2021, looked at scaling up bulk cell production, which is crucial to this whole process and when it becomes cost effective. This study found low growth rate, metabolic inefficiency, catabolite inhibition, and shear-induced cell damage will all limit practical bioreactor volume and attainable cell density. In other words, the conclusion is that at this point, it's just not possible to reach the level of production which is needed to lower the costs so that lab-grown meat can compete with traditional meat products. Have we moved on from that point?
Oh, I mean, A, we've moved on from that point, but B, it's a little bit like asking who's going to buy an electric car 15 years ago and saying the fact that there are no charging stations now means there will never be charging stations. The fact that battery range is low now means there will never be a reasonable battery range. It's a real lack of imagination that takes a current technology and says the technology is never going to get better, so it's not going to be cost competitive.
There was a study done by MIT, and this was, I think, back in 2021, and it basically said that the meat consumption around the world, we're on track to set a new record for global meat consumption. That was the big headline, and all 350 billion kilograms of meat being eaten around the world. And, you know, as you mentioned, the meat industry produces more carbon dioxide or carbon pollution than transportation. So alternative meat or lab-grown meat will be a crucial part of solving the climate crisis.
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge part of solving the climate crisis. It requires a 20th of the land, causes a 10th of the direct emissions, doesn't require antimicrobials in production, doesn't contribute to pandemic risk at all. Things like bird flu and pig flu have a significant likelihood of jumping the species barrier and becoming the next global pandemic. So it solves a lot of problems.
There are also the ethical issues of eating meat. Good Meat advertises its product as meat without slaughter, and good meat is real meat, they say, made without tearing down a forest or taking a life. Pigs, for example, have the same level of intelligence and cognitive skills as a 3-year-old child. Kind of tough to sit down and eat the flesh of an animal that is capable of learning, likes to explore, enjoys playing, and shows self-awareness.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are lots of different reasons that people might choose to be uncomfortable with current production practices for conventional meat. And the reality is that we have been making meat in the same way for 12,000 years. It's antiquated, it's inefficient. And what cultivated meat does is it allows consumers to eat the meat they love, but it's produced in a way that doesn't have the contribution to animal cruelty, doesn't have the contribution to antimicrobial resistance, to climate change, to biodiversity loss. And the great thing about today is that the FDA and the USDA, which have the highest regulatory standards for food safety of any bodies in the world, and they are saying this is a safe and trusted way that consumers can get the meat they love, but without the harm.
Bruce, thank you so much for being with us. We really appreciate it. And this is quite a, it's a big day in so many ways. So it's good to have you with us. Thank you.
Absolutely, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
A lot of these technologies are new, and some of them take a while to understand, and that's okay. If you want to read a really good book that underlines a lot of the foundational technologies and the big changes that are happening right now, there's this book, Brighter, by Adam Dorr. I think I've done a number of videos from Rethink X. They are great at explaining these technological changes that we're going through as a society, and I highly recommend that book if you're interested in learning more about that. I'm Chris, this is Space Foods. We'll see you in the next video.